Godzilla Minus One is the current Toho exclusive Godzilla project stomping through select theaters right now, and I gotta say, this was a pleasant way to end the year. This is probably the best Godzilla film I've seen. Minus One returns to its roots, not presenting Godzilla as this hero of man stopping other kaiju that pose a threat to humanity, but instead this monstrous, destructive force of nature that can't and won't be stopped. Even Godzilla's atomic breath is that of an atom bomb when fired, causing a huge explosion that destroys entire cities and causes toxic fluid to rain from the sky. Now, I'm probably going to butcher these names, so do forgive me. The cast stars the likes of Minami Harambe, Kamiki Ranusuke, Hataki Yashuki, Yuki Yamada, Minataka Ayuki, Sakura Ando, and this last one, forgive me, Kurunisuke Saseki. But the only ones you really need to focus on are Minami Harambe and Kamiki Renosuke, who are the main characters, Noriko and Koichi. Movie opens up with our main character, Koichi, heading over to Odo Island as he has apparently run away from his duties. He got cold feet because he's actually a suicide bomber, and he goes to Odo Island to get his plane fixed, quotations, even though there's nothing wrong with it, to sort of hide from his responsibility as a suicide bomber. And while he's getting his plane fixed, he stays the night over at this military encampment. And that night, Godzilla appears and he decimates the entire encampment and he destroys everything in sight, actively targeting humans and killing them. This smaller version of the character appears to be a non-mutated version of the animal that we will eventually see further in the film, so I'm going to dub this version of the creature the Godzilla Source, as I feel this is Minus One's version of that pre-mutated Godzilla. The Godzillasaurus lays waste to this entire encampment, slaughtering everybody and everything it sees, until eventually Koichi blacks out of sheer fear. He wakes up to just a nightmarish scene. Everything is destroyed and everybody is dead, with the exception of Takibana, who is still alive and ridicules him for not having taken the shot when he was told to go into his plane and shoot the creature in the face with some of the rounds from his ship. As Koichi froze up out of sheer fear, encountering the creature face to face. He goes back home and nothing changes. Everybody ridicules him for not doing his job properly, and they even tell him that my family and friends could still be alive if it wasn't for you. So let's just say he doesn't go back to a healthy environment. As he is coming to terms with him being the single survivor of this attack from a giant sea monster in the shape of a dinosaur, and coming back to a ravaged world just fresh off of World War II. He meets a girl named Noriko who is taking care of an orphan child. And over the course of the movie, Noriko and Koichi sort of become a family, and they have this little girl together, and they're really happy. However, in the back of Koichi's mind is always Godzilla. He's awakened in a sweat every night after having dreams that he's being killed by Godzilla, and that he couldn't do anything to stop the massacre. He is scared. He wants vengeance for what happened, but at the same time, the sight of Godzilla horrifies him. Koichi gets a job on a boat, working with a bunch of crew members as they destroy mines in the water with a gun. Now, this makes him quite a decent living, and he makes enough money to afford Noriko and himself, and obviously their orphan daughter, a nice place to live. And they sort of build a life for themselves. However, when Noriko decides to get a job and leave their orphan daughter with a friend for the day, the unspeakable happens. Godzilla, further mutated by the bombings on Bikini Atoll, descends upon Tokyo and ravages the place, nearly killing Noriko in the process. Obviously, Koushi goes back to that day, that night of Godzilla attacking the people at that camp on Odo Island, and he's just not having a good time. He's having mental breakdowns, he's wondering if he actually died on Odo Island, if he's even still alive, and that he's haunted by dreams of the people that died during that massacre, and he's just not in a good place. He's super bummed out. He's got serious survivor's guilt from the trauma, and now Godzilla is back even stronger than before. Not to mention, this version of Godzilla has crazy levels of regeneration. It was able to heal damaged parts of its head after swallowing a mine. It regenerated and healed itself within seconds, and we see it do this multiple times throughout the movie after sustaining many flesh wounds during its battles with the military and even in the movie's final battle. During the attack, Godzilla stomps through the street. His very footsteps cause the ground to crack and shoot chunks into the air, launching people and killing them. Godzilla is also seen rampaging through the streets and tearing down buildings with the brute force of his clawed hands. And finally, to end things very grimly, Godzilla fires a devastating blast of his atomic breath, which decimates the entire city and anyone in the crossfire. Nikorito saves Kushi before her life ends as well. After this, the community comes together to form a strategy and a battle plan in order to get rid of Godzilla. They decide to drown Godzilla using some balloons and forcibly push him down into the water super fast so that the pressure will essentially kill Godzilla. And if that doesn't work, they will raise him up with the same speed, which should do the job. Obviously, they're not convinced that this will fully work, but they have to try, otherwise thousands more will die. So, in the weeks leading up to the big plan, they come up with ideas on how to stop Godzilla, fill in the gaps in the plan. One of the ideas that our main character has, Yuichi, is to get a plane that he can actually load up with a bunch of weaponry to piss Godzilla off next time he makes landfall, lure him out to sea where all the boats will entrap him with all these little balloons that'll suck him down to the bottom of the ocean, and then if that fails, they'll suck him back up, and presumably the pressure of the ocean, the force of the ocean, will kill him, and the world will be saved. After everything is all said and done, the day arrives, and Godzilla has arrived sooner than they expected. He hurls ships from the harbor into the city, destroying buildings and presumably killing more people. What the fuck, Godzilla? Yuichi gets into his airplane and flies to the location of Godzilla, where he is rampaging through the countryside, sort of away from all the big structures, and Yuichi begins firing his guns at Godzilla. This doesn't seem to hurt the creature, but it does piss Godzilla off as he angrily swipes at the airplane and tries to hit it with his tail, but to no avail. Yuichi then lures Godzilla back to sea, where he can be confronted by this fleet of ships carrying the cargo of these little balloons that are meant to sink Godzilla to the bottom of the ocean. Godzilla then goes right into the trap, and they spring it, beginning to send Godzilla down on his way to the ocean floor. They successfully sink Godzilla as he's attempting to fire his atomic breath, and Godzilla's atomic breath just suddenly shuts off once he hits the bottom of the ocean. This does not kill Godzilla, it does disorientate him, and he tries to get away, so they go with Plan B, and they begin to raise him. However, some of the cables snap until a fleet of tugboats come and start helping out as well. And they are able to successfully push Godzilla up to the surface the rest of the way, and Godzilla is very beat up. Like, he's covered in all kinds of scars, his skin is melted, he's had it rough. And so they then send Yuichi with his airplane. He shoots at Godzilla. Godzilla's beginning to fire his atomic breath once more before Yuichi launches the plane right into Godzilla's mouth. The bomb inside the plane detonates, blowing Godzilla's head off. He collapses into the sea as the atomic energy within him ruptures, destroying Godzilla's body and what was left. Everyone is sad because they think Koichi is dead. However, it is revealed that just before striking Godzilla in the face, blowing his head off with the fighter jet, that he actually ejected, and he survived and safely falls in the water before presumably swimming up to one of the ships. Even Takibana, the guy who ridiculed him at the beginning of the movie, and even when Kyoichi searched him out to help fix his prototype fighter jet, Takibana seems to have forgiven him and even installed an ejector seat in the jet for exactly this reason. And with that, the day is saved, Godzilla is dead, and everyone celebrates. Shortly after, Koichi goes back home, he picks up his daughter, he's so happy to see her, and then he gets a telegram revealing that Noriko is still alive and in the hospital recovering when she was previously thought to be dead during the devastating attack of Godzilla's atomic breath, basically being a nuke. So she survived miraculously, and so the two go over there to visit her, and she seems rather fine. She has an injured arm and an injured eye, but other than that, she seems alright. She smiles, she's happy to see her family, and she asks Koichi, "Is your war finally over?" Koichi, beside himself just to see that his friend is still alive, he starts crying, and he goes, yes, my war is finally over. I can rest in peace now. However, things are made rather grim, as it seems that Noriko has a sort of spider-like vein in her neck that's black, probably from the atomic energy raining from the sky. We saw that earlier in the movie, so that's pretty creepy. And then after that, we go back to the ocean, to the site of the remains of Godzilla, all these bits of Godzilla's body just floating in the ocean, and one of these bits starts to grow, and it is implied that Godzilla will be back after regenerating. Now the question still remains to be answered. Will Godzilla revert back to the Godzillasaurus form and then slowly mutate back into his regular form? Or will he just straight up regrow back into the final form of Godzilla, which we see throughout most of the film? Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. Going into my thoughts on the movie, one of the best Japanese Godzilla movies I've ever seen. Next to Godzilla, the original one, the original Gojira, that was an awesome movie, but I feel like that movie is dated in comparison to this new one. Yes, we wouldn't have all these other projects if it wasn't for the original, and I love the original being more of an allegory to nuclear testing and how it affects mankind, but this movie goes to 100 with that concept. We have Godzilla presented as this huge, unstoppable monster that isn't just destroying things for the sake of destroying things, he's also specifically hunting humans. We see him directly target humans when he's a Godzillasaurus and when he's in his final Godzilla form. It is super scary, and every time they use him, well, they do use him sporadically through the film, whenever Godzilla is on screen, it instills fear, so I think they did that really well. Even the human characters, Previous films, the human characters were kind of bland, and didn't really sympathize with them. They were just kind of goofy human characters. But in this film, you actually want them to succeed. You feel bad for Koichi and what happened. He tried to run away from his duties as a suicide bomber and then got everybody killed, and then he's survivor guilt. He feels really bad. He comes back to a horrible situation after the war, and so he is just not having a good time. He's haunted by dreams of the Godzilla source killing everybody on Odo Island. He wonders if he's even still alive. He wonders if he died on Odo Island, and if everything he's experiencing now with Kariko and their daughter are just the dreams and hopes of a dead man. Super dark, super grim, but also super realistic and down to earth. I love that we don't just focus on the monsters, although I do like that, but we more or less focus on the human perspective of it. The humans are trying to survive and get by as this huge monster continuously comes and ravages their cities and destroys people's lives. Through all the years of me watching Godzilla films, whether that be Godzilla 2000, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, Godzilla vs. Gigan, The Son of Godzilla, and any of the MonsterVerse films, I've always wondered to myself, what would it be like if we focused on a human's perspective of these giant monster attacks? How horrifying would that be? And I feel like this movie is there to answer the people that have those questions of what it would be like to be a human just trying to survive these huge kaiju attacks, and I really respect that. The movie just has a bit of everything. Movie's got giant monster chaos, it's got spirit, it's got soul, it's not just a mindless action film. There's substance to it. You got the giant monster killing everybody, causing destruction, but then you got the plot with the humans. They're very sad, they're trying to find out a way to stop this thing, but to no avail, and you have all of these different themes coming to make a really emotional and sometimes even dark film. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think about this movie. Have you seen it? And let me know what you think. With that being said, do take care, have a great night, and I'll see you in the next video.